Hey guys, tonight we drift into a medieval chamber thick with the smell of beeswax candles, sweetened wine, and something far more decadent. The air feels heavy, the kind of weight you notice pressing at your chest, and you can almost hear the rustle of silk sheets behind a carved oak door. Somewhere in there is a king, a man with the authority to raise armies, change laws, and more often than not, indulge appetites so vast and strange they make the usual tales of royal excess sound like bedtime stories for children. His castle is lit by torchlight, shadowed halls hiding whispers, and you're about to follow him down corridors no one dares walk after dark. You probably won't survive this with your innocence intact. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and your local time in the comments. I love knowing exactly where you're listening from and what hour this little journey finds you. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You start at the gatehouse where the iron portcullis groans as it rises. Your boots hit the cobbles, and you can feel the vibration in your knees. The guards glance at you, then quickly look away. They've been trained not to meet the eyes of anyone who has an appointment in the king's private wing. The main courtyard is alive with motion stable boys hustling to settle the royal horses, kitchen hands balancing platters of fruit and meat, and a jester wobbling by on a single wheel, pretending he doesn't see you. Everything in this place hums with service, but no one dares make the king wait. Past the great hall, its ceiling blackened from decades of candle smoke, you come to the corridor that leads to the king's own chambers. The stone walls here are smoother than rushes on the floor cleaner. The sconces are polished so that the flames reflect in warm gold glows. This is the part of the castle that doesn't smell of mud and sweat. Here it smells of clove oil, honey, and the faint musk of bodies. The king's appetite is not a secret, but the details. The details are things whispered in kitchens and scrawled in marginal notes by visiting priests who pray twice as long after an audience with him. His name, at least in public, is King Alaric IV. In official portraits, he is the embodiment of medieval majesty, a strong jaw, wavy hair, just brushing his shoulders, and eyes that hold that practiced glint of command. But portraits, as you're about to learn, are lies. The real Alaric is stranger than any painted likeness could capture. He is a collector of pleasures, a hoarder of moments that would make the chroniclers blush. In his court he is law, and in his private life he writes the laws as he goes along. You pass through a door carved with knotwork and griffins into the antechamber. Two attendants stand there tall and unsmiling. They do not speak to you, only open the second door. And now at last you step into the royal chamber. It's warmer here, the fire in the hearth roaring as if it's been fed since dawn. The ceiling beams are draped in deep crimson fabric. Cushions, furs, and embroidered coverlets spill over chairs and couches in untidy heaps, as if discarded in the throes of some indulgence. On a table, goblets stand half full beside a plate of figs and candied rose petals. Alaric lounges on a couch, his crown tilted slightly, deliberately off-center. He's dressed not in regal robes, but in a flowing shirt of fine linen open at the throat, the sleeves loose. His bare feet rest on a low stool carved in the shape of a lion. Around him, three women laugh softly at something he's just said, though you suspect it wasn't meant for your ears. "Ah," he says when he sees you, the historian. His voice is warm, almost too warm, like wine left by the fire. "Come closer. I like to see the eyes of those who think they can capture me in words." You cross the carpet, feeling the give of it under your feet. Up close, you notice the king's eyes are not the soft brown of his portraits, but a sharp, unsettling amber. They study you like you're an object worth appraising. You've heard things he says, gesturing for you to sit. They always have. Tales about my feasts, my guests, my games. He smiles without showing his teeth. I suppose you've come to see whether they are true. The truth, you realize, is a slippery thing here. The king's chamber is part theater, part shrine, part trap. You've heard the rumors, the midnight banquets, where dishes are served in courses of increasing indecency. The masked revels that spill into dawn. The peculiar gifts sent to noblewomen who catch his eye, gifts they cannot refuse without insult. And darker rumors still about the special hunts where the prey is not always deer, and about the tower room that no guest has entered twice. Alaric gestures again, and one of the women hands you a goblet. The wine is spiced and heady. The warmth spreads through you faster than you expect, loosening your shoulders. You're aware of every flicker of the firelight now, every glint of the king's amber eyes. You think me a monster, he says softly, almost kindly. But monsters are born of rules. I simply refuse to live by them. You glance around the room. The walls are hung with tapestries, not of battles or saints, but of scenes so intimate they'd never hang in a chapel. Figures twined together under moonlight, faces hidden by elaborate masks. In one, a crowned figure, Alaric himself unmistakably extends a hand toward a kneeling stranger. The weaver has caught the glint in his eye perfectly. The king leans closer. History will write me as it wishes. But tonight, he says, you will see me as I am. Outside, the wind rattles the shutters. Somewhere in the castle, a bell tolls the hour. But here in this room, time feels slower, thickened by heat and the king's voice. You've stepped into a different kind of medieval life, one that no school book will ever teach. And as Alaric rises from his couch, the firelight catching in his hair, you know you've only just crossed the threshold into his world. He moves like a man who knows the room belongs to him, each step deliberate, as if his bare feet are marking territory across the thick carpet. The three women rise, their laughter falling away into that hushed, expectant quiet that says something is about to happen. Alaric stops in front of you, close enough for you to smell the faint tang of wine on his breath, the perfume of clove and something darker beneath. You will dine with me tonight, he says, not as an invitation, but a decree. And you will remember every detail. His eyes scan your face, lingering just long enough to remind you there's no way to refuse without consequence. The women move quickly now, drawing a low table closer to the hearth. Platters appear, grapes still dusted with bloom, roasted quail with skin glistening under a glaze of honey, small pies with buttery crusts flaking at the edges. Everything is presented on silver chased with intricate designs, vines curling around tiny, near-hidden figures that when you notice them are locked in carnal embrace. You blink, unsure if it's your imagination, but when you glance back at the king, he's smiling faintly, as though he knows you've noticed. Alaric sits first, cross-legged on a mound of cushions. He gestures for you to join him. Here, he says, pressing a slice of quail into your hand. Eat, drink. Let your historian's guard fall. Truth hides from the sober mind. The fire pops, sending up a shower of sparks. You chew slowly, aware of every sensation, the crisp skin, the sweetness of honey, the salt beneath. The wine follows, rich and heady, pooling warmth deep in your chest. Around you, the women recline gracefully, their eyes flicking toward the king for cues. Sometimes they feed him, sometimes each other, a languid ritual, that seems less about hunger than about performance. This Alaric says, leaning back on one elbow, is how one learns the soul of a king not in council chambers or on the battlefield, but here where desire is the only law. A feast without boundaries is the truest court. You've studied enough medieval rulers to know how dangerous it can be when a monarch believes his pleasures are the realm's highest truth. But Alaric seems to thrive in this dangerous self-mythology. Every gesture feels rehearsed yet natural, every glance calculated to pull you deeper into the story he's spinning. The conversation drifts between languages as if boundaries of speech don't matter here. Latin slips into the local tongue, which in turn melts into a dialect you've never heard. Yet somehow you understand enough. You catch fragments, a jest about a neighboring duke's prudish court, a toast to the night hunts during which no man leaves unchanged, an allusion to a masked ball where guests were forbidden to speak their own names. Each anecdote is dropped like a breadcrumb, daring you to follow. One of the women, her hair the color of ripe wheat, leans toward you. "Have you seen the fountain room?" she asks, her voice soft enough to be almost a whisper. Before you can answer, Alaric chuckles. No. That is for later. The fountain room is not for the uninitiated." He turns to you, eyes glinting. "We will see whether you are ready." The fire has burned lower now, its light deeper redder. Shadows gather in the corners of the chamber, softening edges. The air feels heavier, as though the walls themselves are leaning closer to hear. The women pour more wine, their movements slower, more deliberate. Alaric begins to tell a story not to you directly, but to the room, though you know it's meant for you. It's about his youth when he first learned that rules were threads meant to be pulled. He speaks of slipping away from the monastery school where he was sent at 12, finding his way into the kitchens of a brothel disguised as a tavern. How he listened to the laughter upstairs, the clink of coins on a counter, the strange mix of reverence and corruption in the air. "It was there," he says, "that I learned what kingship truly is, the ability to take the forbidden and make it yours." His gaze fixes on you, and for a heartbeat, you feel as though he's speaking about more than just his own life, like he's testing whether you share that hunger. A bell tolls somewhere in the castle. Alaric rises. "Come." You stand a little unsteady from the wine and follow him through a side door. The corridor beyond is narrow, lined with niches holding unlit candles. Your footsteps echo softly. You realize the women are not following. This is different, quieter, more intimate. The hallway ends at a heavy wooden door bound in iron. Alaric produces a key from somewhere within his linen shirt and fits it into the lock. The metal groans and the door swings inward. You step into a room lit by a single lantern hanging from a chain. The space is circular, its walls tiled in patterns of deep blue and gold. In the center stands a stone fountain, water spilling in delicate arcs from the mouths of carved cherubs. The sound is gentle, almost hypnotic, but it's not the fountain's beauty that catches you. It's the figures painted on the tiles, men and women crowned and common entwined in poses that would scandalize any chapel wall. Some are painted in gold leaf, their forms catching the light like sun-kissed skin. Alaric steps closer to the fountain, trailing his fingers in the water. "This," he says softly, "is my sanctuary. No courtier enters here unless they have something worth offering." Your eyes drift over the mosaics. You notice small details, a pair of lovers exchanging masks mid-embrace, a king kneeling before a peasant girl, hands passing a crown as if it were a toy. The imagery is layered, both reverent and mocking of power. I come here, Alaric continues, when the weight of the crown is too heavy, or when I wish to remember why I bear it at all. He turns to you. Tell me, historian, do you think a king should be bound by the same rules as his people? The question hangs in the air like incense. You sense it's not rhetorical. The safe answer would be yes, but something in his gaze tells you he's fishing for something else, an admission perhaps, or a spark of complicity. Before you can respond, he smiles faintly. No matter. You will see the answer for yourself. He dips both hands into the fountain and then cups the water, letting it spill through his fingers. The gesture feels ceremonial, though you can't place the ritual. When you leave the fountain room, the air of the corridor feels cooler, more ordinary. The spell of the place lingers in your mind, though like the echo of a dream you can't quite shake. Back in the main chamber, the women are gone. Only the fire remains crackling softly. Alaric pours himself another cup of wine and sinks into the couch. Tomorrow, he says, there will be a hunt. You will ride with me. He doesn't elaborate. You have heard whispers of these hunts, how they begin with falcons and hounds and end with something else. The way he says it leaves you unsure whether to look forward to dawn or dread it. For now, he waves a hand toward the door. Sleep well, historian. You'll need your strength. The guest chamber they've given you is lavish in a way that feels almost suspicious. The bed is vast, its canopy heavy with embroidered velvet. The mattress swallows you as you sit down the furs at its foot, smelling faintly of cedar. A silver ewer of water stands on a side table beside a goblet, and a low fire burns in the hearth, just enough to keep the chill from the stones. Someone has set a pair of soft leather slippers at the foot of the bed. It's the kind of comfort meant to lull you into lowering your guard. You can still taste the wine from earlier, its heat lingering in the back of your throat. Your mind drifts toward the king's words. You will ride with me. The way he said it made it sound less like an honor and more like a summons to an initiation. You lie back, staring at the canopy, and try to imagine what kind of hunt could make the servants whisper and the courtiers avert their eyes. Sleep comes in fragments. You hear the wind moving through the high towers, the occasional clatter of a guard's armor as he passes down the hall, the soft drip of water somewhere beyond the walls. Your dreams are tangled fragments of the fountain room's mosaics. The king's amber eyes, the sensation of being watched from just beyond the edge of the torchlight. When you wake, it's still dark. A faint tapping at the door draws you out of bed. A servant stands there holding a cloak lined in thick fur. He says nothing, only gestures for you to follow. The corridors are lit by torches set high on the walls, their light flickering across the stone like restless shadows. Outside, the air is biting. Your breath fogs as you cross the courtyard where horses wait in a restless line. Their tack gleams in the torchlight's silver buckles, catching each flicker of flame. Alaric has already mounted, his cloak billowing behind him. Even at this hour, he looks perfectly awake, his posture in the saddle regal and easy. He inclines his head when he sees you, though the gesture is more command than greeting. You ride well, he asks. You nod truthfully, though the question feels more like a test than small talk. Good, he says, and spurs his horse forward. The hunt begins quietly. The riders, half a dozen of them, move at an even pace through the castle gates and into the surrounding woods. The hounds pad alongside, their breath puffing in quick bursts, their ears pricked for a signal. The moon is just a sliver tonight, and most of the light comes from the torches the attendants carry. Every so often, Alaric glances over his shoulder at you, his expression unreadable. The forest closes in quickly, the trees tall and skeletal in the winter air. You hear the snap of twigs beneath the horse's hooves, the distant call of some night bird. And beneath it all, a strange anticipatory quiet, as if even the woods know what kind of hunt this will be. Eventually, Alaric raises a hand and the company halts. One of the attendants dismounts and whispers something to him. The king listens, then gives a single nod. The hounds are released, surging ahead into the darkness with low, eager growls. The riders follow, spurring their mounts into a canter. You expect the quarry to be deer or perhaps boar, but when you catch sight of movement ahead, your stomach knots. The figure that darts between the trees is human small and quick. At first you think it's a boy, perhaps a servant playing some dangerous game. But the torches catch enough detail to tell you otherwise. It's a young woman. Her dress torn, her hair flying loose. She runs like someone who knows the terrain, dodging between trunks, vaulting over roots. The hounds close the gap with frightening speed. Alaric leans forward in his saddle, eyes alight, urging his horse on. The rest of the riders follow suit, and you're swept along before you can even think about what this means. The chase lasts longer than you expect, long enough for your pulse to hammer in your ears. The girl darts through a narrow gap between two fallen trees, and the riders split to follow. The hounds are almost upon her now, their snarls cutting through the cold air. And then Alaric calls them off. Just like that, the hunt ends. The girl stumbles to a halt, gasping for breath, her eyes wide as she turns to face the king. He dismounts slowly, every movement deliberate. "You've done well," he says to her. "You may go." She bows deeply, almost touching her forehead to the ground, then slips away into the darkness. You're left with more questions than answers. What kind of hunt ends like this? Why let the prey go? Alaric mounts again, turning his horse back toward the castle. Curious, he asks, catching your eye. Yes, you admit. Good. Curiosity is the first step toward understanding. The ride back is quieter. The woods seem less threatening now, though you can't shake the image of the girl's face, the wild brightness in her eyes. She didn't look afraid, not exactly. More like she was part of some ritual you didn't yet grasp. By the time you return to the castle, dawn is just brushing the horizon. The torches sputter in the pale light. Servants appear to take the horses, and Alaric dismisses the riders with a wave. "Come," he says to you. "There is something else you must see." He leads you through a side entrance into a part of the castle you haven't explored. The air here is cooler, the corridors narrower. Eventually, you reach a heavy door banded with iron. He pushes it open to reveal a long hall lined with glass cases. Inside each case is a mask, dozens of them. Some are carved from wood painted in bright colors. Others are made of beaten gold inlaid with jewels. A few are grotesque with exaggerated noses or twisted mouths, and some are heartbreakingly delicate, like lace frozen in metal. These, Alaric says, are the faces of my guests. Every mask tells a story of a night, a game, a moment worth remembering. When a guest pleases me, they leave me their mask. When they displease me... He lets the sentence trail off, but the pause is enough to let your imagination fill in the rest. You move slowly down the hall, studying the masks. Some seem playful, others pulse with a darker energy. One in particular catches your eye, a simple half mask of black leather, its edges worn smooth by use. Something about it feels heavy with memory. Alaric notices your interest. "Ah," he says softly. That one belonged to someone who thought they could outwit me. They were wrong. You don't ask what happened. The way he says it makes the answer unnecessary. At the far end of the hall is a pedestal, and on it rests a crown unlike any you've seen before. It's smaller than his ceremonial crown, made of intertwined silver branches, tipped with tiny garnet berries. This is my other crown, he says, the one I wear when I am not a king in the eyes of the world, but in the eyes of my court, the true court. He doesn't touch it, but the way he looks at it tells you it matters more than the gold and jewels he wears in the throne room. You stand there for a long moment, the silence stretching. You realize that piece by piece he's showing you the machinery of his private kingdom, the rules, the symbols, the rituals. And that means one of two things: he either trusts you, or he wants to draw you in so far there's no way out. You linger in that long hall of masks, your fingertips hovering just shy of the glass. It feels like a place where voices ought to whisper even though no one else is here but you and Alaric. The air smells faintly of cedar oil and something older dust maybe, but sweetened somehow. You can't help wondering what it would be like to wear one of those masks, to slip into one of the stories they hold. Alaric watches you with a patience that isn't really patience. It's more like he's weighing you on some invisible scale. Finally, he turns away his cloak, whispering over the stone floor. "There's a reason you're here," he says, his voice low enough that you feel it more than hear it. "Not everyone gets invited to see this side of my reign." He stops in front of the silver branch crown. "The world beyond these walls knows me as a ruler. Here I am, something else entirely." He glances back toward the masks. "The faces you saw belong to those who have played my games. Some were guests, others offerings. The game itself changes, but the rules, my rules, never do. And tonight, you'll play." You feel a flicker of hesitation, maybe even a chill. But he's already moving, leading you out of the hall. The corridors twist and narrow as you follow him, until you reach a staircase spiraling down into shadow. Your footsteps echo off damp stone. A faint rhythmic sound rises to meet you, drums slow and deliberate. The air grows warmer, scented with something like frankincense. At the base of the stairs, a wide doorway opens into a chamber, unlike anything you've seen in the castle so far. The walls are hung with crimson silk, lit by hundreds of candles flickering in iron sconces. A low dais rises at the far end, draped in black velvet. The floor between is bare stone, polished smooth by years of feet crossing it. Dozens of figures stand around the edges of the room, each wearing a mask. None speak, though you feel their attention turn toward you as you enter. Their masks are as varied as the ones in the hall upstairs, some beautiful, some grotesque, some carved into expressions that don't quite belong to human faces. Alaric strides to the center of the chamber. He's already wearing a mask now, a half face of hammered gold plane, but somehow commanding. "Welcome," he says to the room, though his voice is aimed at you. Tonight, our guest joins the game. A masked figure steps forward carrying a tray draped in red cloth. When they pull the cloth back, you see two masks resting there. One is a delicate piece of silver filigree shaped like the wings of a moth. The other is a dark leather full face, the mouth sewn shut with black cord. "Choose," Alaric says. You hesitate. The silver one feels lighter, less oppressive, but you sense that in this place appearances are traps. Still, you reach for the silver mask. The masked attendant bows and sets it gently against your face. The crowd stirs, not with sound exactly, but with a shift in the air, like the moment before a storm breaks. Alaric's gaze lingers on you a moment longer before he begins to speak. The rules are simple, he says. I will ask you 3 questions. Each answer will take you deeper. The mask you wear is both your shield and your tether. Answer honestly, and it will protect you. Lie, and it will change. He pauses long enough for the weight of his words to settle. The first question, what is the thing you most wish to take from another without their consent? The bluntness of it catches you. The masked faces around you tilt slightly, listening. You think of all the ways the question could be taken, material, emotional, something darker. You choose your words carefully, speaking them aloud. The room seems to approve, or at least nothing bad happens yet. The second, Alaric says, his voice lower now. What is the thing you would give away, even if it cost you everything? Again, you answer, your voice steadier this time. The third, he says, and now the candles seem to flicker all at once. If the law vanished tonight, what would you do before sunrise? You speak, and when your words leave you, the room exhales. Alaric steps closer, close enough that you can see the faint reflection of your silver mask in his gold one. Interesting, he murmurs. Then he turns to the crowd. Let the game begin. The drums quicken. 2 masked attendants take your hands, guiding you toward the center of the chamber. The others form a loose circle, their masked faces shifting in and out of the candlelight. You sense they're not just watching, they're judging. A voice somewhere in the circle calls out an instruction. The attendants release you. A masked figure steps forward, moving with a predator's grace. You realize the game is no longer about answering questions. It's about surviving whatever this is. The figure circles you once, twice, then lunges, not with a weapon, but with hands reaching for your mask. Instinct flares and you step back, deflecting the grasp. The crowd murmurs approval. Another figure enters the circle, then another. Each tests you in some way. One tries to corner you, another to distract you with feigned weakness, another to tempt you closer. You begin to understand the game is about holding on to your mask, about protecting the identity you've chosen. Time blurs. The drums slow again, and finally Alaric raises a hand. The circle breaks. The masked figures step back, melting into the crowd. You're still wearing your mask. You can feel your breath against the silver filigree, warm and quick. Alaric approaches, removing his gold mask. His expression is unreadable. Well done, he says quietly. You've kept your face. That's more than many manage their first night. He glances toward the dais. Come. There's one more thing you need to see. You follow him up the steps. Behind the velvet drape is a narrow archway leading to a smaller chamber. Inside, the walls are lined with shelves holding books and scrolls. A single desk stands in the center, lit by a cluster of candles. These, Alaric says, are the records of every guest who has played the game. Their names, their masks, their answers. He runs a hand along a row of spines. History doesn't record these truths, but I do. Because here they matter more than any treaty or battle. He picks up a blank book from the desk and sets it before you. Write your name, he says. You pick up the quill. The ink is darker than you expect, almost red in the candlelight. As you write, you feel a strange finality settle over you, as if you've stepped over a threshold you didn't see until now. Alaric smiles faintly when you finish. Welcome, he says. You're one of us now. The candles sputter as if in agreement, their light licking higher for just a moment before settling back into stillness. The quill still feels heavy in your fingers, even after you set it down. That name you've just written, it's yours. But here, it feels like something else. A token. A signature on an unspoken pact. Alaric closes the book gently, as if tucking your secret into its new home. You'll understand soon enough, he says, sliding the ledger back onto its shelf. In my court, a name is not merely what people call you. It's a door. And you've just unlocked yours. He gestures for you to follow, leading you out of the record chamber and back into the candle-lit hall. The masked guests are gone now, leaving the room eerily still. The absence of their presence feels almost louder than their watchful silence did. Only the faint scent of wax and frankincense lingers, curling in the air, like memory. Instead of returning the way you came, Alaric takes you through a hidden panel behind the dais. It swings inward with a muted groan, revealing a narrow passage. The air here is warmer, scented with spiced wine and something else, something sweet and faintly metallic. The passage spills into a room you can only describe as decadent excess brought to life. It's circular, with a domed ceiling, painted in scenes that refuse to stay still. When you look too long, figures reclining under trees, cups in hand, their bodies draped and undraped in impossible fabrics. A low fire burns in a bronze brazier at the center, sending soft orange light dancing over the polished stone floor. Cushions, carpets, and low couches fill the space, each piled with silks and furs. Here the king's private court waits. Not the masked assembly you saw before, but a smaller, tighter circle of people. They lounge like cats in the warm glow, speaking in low tones. At first you think none are masked, but then you notice the subtlety of their disguises, a strip of painted leather across the eyes, a thin veil of gold mesh, a crescent moon of enamel clinging to a temple. They all look up when you enter. Their gazes have weight. Alaric crosses to a couch at the far side of the room and sinks into it, draping himself with casual authority. Our new historian, he says, gesturing toward you. Tonight, they join the court proper. One of the courtiers, a tall man with a silver crescent mask, rises and approaches. His steps are slow measured. Do they understand the stakes, he asks the king without looking at you. They will, Alaric replies. The game is not over. The man regards you for a moment, then nods and retreats to his seat. Alaric gestures you forward. You've seen the masks, you've played the first game. But here the rules change. This is not about protecting your face, it's about learning how to use it. From a low table beside him, he lifts a small wooden box and flips the lid open. Inside are dice, but unlike any you've seen before. Each face bears not numbers, but symbols: a crown, a dagger, a key, a flame, a cup, an eye. These are the dice of wager, Alaric says. We play them to trade favors, to settle debts, to make arrangements. He picks them up and lets them tumble through his fingers. Each throw carries a choice. You may accept what the dice give you or challenge. He passes the dice to you. They feel warm as if they've been sitting by the brazier. You roll them across the table. They clatter to a stop, dagger and key. The courtiers lean forward slightly. Alaric smiles faintly. The dagger means a risk, physical, political, or personal. The key means access and opening you wouldn't otherwise have. He leans closer. Your choice: take the risk to gain the key or pass it to another player. You can feel every eye in the room on you. Passing feels like weakness. You choose the risk. Good, Alaric says softly, as though he was expecting nothing else. Then tomorrow night, you'll be given the key. But the risk will come first. The dice pass to the next player, and the game unfolds. The symbols weave a pattern of promises and threats. A flame paired with a crown means influence through passion. A cup with an eye means indulgence while being watched. The courtiers play with an easy familiarity, laughing softly at each turn. And always the stakes shift, small wagers turning into something larger, subtler. When the game ends, Alaric signals for wine. Goblets are passed, the fire's glow deepens, and the air becomes thicker with the smell of spiced drink and bodies. Conversation turns to stories half true, half fantastical. You hear of a feast held entirely underwater, of a jewel stolen from the Pope's own table, of a kiss traded for a crown. Whether any of it happened doesn't seem to matter. Alaric tells his own story about a visiting queen who came to broker peace and left without her shoes, her dignity, or her ambassador. The courtiers laugh like they've all heard it before but never tire of it. At some point, a woman with a gold mesh veil takes a lute from the corner and begins to play. The sound is low and winding, curling through the room like smoke. The rhythm makes your heartbeat feel slower, heavier. Alaric leans toward you. "The key you earned," he says quietly, "will open a door not all my guests are allowed to see. But you must understand what's behind it changes people. Sometimes for the better, sometimes not." He doesn't elaborate. He just leans back, sipping his wine, his amber eyes never leaving yours. The evening stretches on until the fire in the brazier is nothing but embers. At last, Alaric rises. The courtiers follow suit, bowing slightly as he passes. He gestures for you to walk with him. You leave the warmth of the room for the cooler corridors beyond. The castle is quiet now, the kind of deep silence that makes every footstep sound deliberate. Alaric leads you not toward your chamber, but upward spiraling stairs, narrow halls. At last you come to a door unlike any you've seen here before. It's of plain oak, unadorned with a single iron lock. Alaric rests his hand on it. "This," he says, "is the door you've won the right to open. Tomorrow night you'll step through it. Tonight you'll sleep. You'll need your strength." He leaves you there, with the image of the door etched into your mind. Plain, simple, almost disappointingly ordinary, yet the way he speaks of it makes it feel heavier than gold. Back in your chamber, you lie awake for a long time. The dice, the dagger, the key, these things twist together in your mind. You think about the risk you've agreed to take, though you have no idea what form it will come in. Somewhere in the castle, a bell tolls the late hour. You finally drift into sleep, but even in your dreams, the plain oak door waits locked and silent. The dream is heavy and thick, like trying to swim through honey. You drift in and out of half-formed visions, hands rolling the strange dice again and again, each throw landing dagger and key. The oak door appears over and over, sometimes closer, sometimes impossibly far down an endless hallway. You wake before dawn with the taste of metal in your mouth and the distinct sense that someone had been speaking to you in your sleep. The castle is quiet, save for the occasional creak of timber or the whisper of wind through arrow slits. You're still under the firs when the knock comes. Not a polite tap, 3 firm raps. A servant enters without waiting for your reply, holding a folded note sealed in black wax. The seal is stamped with the dagger symbol. You break it open. The note is short, written in an elegant hand. Your risk begins at the 9th bell. Do not be late. The words sink into you like a cold stone dropped into deep water. You have hours until the 9th bell, but every moment feels shortened by anticipation. When the time comes, another servant guides you through a route you haven't taken before. Narrow corridors, spiral stairs, low ceilings. You're brought to a small antechamber lit by a single lamp. Waiting there is a man in a plain brown tunic. No mask, no ornamentation. He looks you over once, expression unreadable, then gestures toward a chest in the corner. Inside is riding gear, sturdy leather boots, thick gloves, a long coat lined with fur. Clearly you're going outside. When you're ready, he leads you down to the courtyard where Alaric is already mounted. He's dressed in deep green, a hood drawn up against the cold. The hounds are there again, their eyes glinting in the pale morning light. Today, Alaric says, as you approach, you'll see what the risk means. You mount up, the leather creaking beneath you. The company is smaller this time, just Alaric, you, and 2 riders in the king's livery. The gates open with a groan, and you ride out into the frost-rimmed forest. The pace is brisk breath pluming from the horses. You recognize parts of the woods from the earlier hunt, but the path soon twists into unfamiliar territory. The trees here are denser, their trunks black against the thin winter sun. Alaric rides ahead, speaking little. Eventually he slows near a clearing where the snow is churned by tracks, not animal, but human. He dismounts, tying his horse to a low branch. You do the same. The hounds strain at their leashes, sniffing the air. From the shadows at the far side of the clearing, 2 figures emerge, both hooded, both with their hands bound in front of them. One is tall and lean, moving stiffly. The other is smaller, glancing up through tangled hair. These, Alaric says, are thieves, or so I have been told. He turns to you. The risk you chose is this: you will decide their fate. It takes you a moment to grasp what he means. You may let them go, he continues, or you may have them punished. Or his eyes gleam, you may claim them for the court. The smaller figure raises their head, and you see fear there, but also defiance. The taller one stares at you steadily, as if daring you to choose wrongly. The forest feels utterly still, waiting for your decision. You weigh the choices, aware that whatever you say will ripple outward into consequences you can't yet see. In the end, you speak, your voice carrying into the cold air. Alaric studies your answer for a long moment, then smiles faintly. Interesting, he says. You've chosen well, or at least you've chosen boldly. He signals to the riders, who move to carry out your decision without hesitation. The hounds whine, restless, as if they too sense the shift. When it's done, whatever it is, Alaric turns his horse back toward the castle. That was your risk, he says over his shoulder. The key comes tonight. The ride back feels longer, though. Perhaps that's because your mind is turning over what just happened. You've acted within the king's private law, now made a choice that will be recorded in one of those ledgers. Whether it will earn you favor or suspicion remains to be seen. By the time you return, the sun is low. Servants hurry through the halls with trays of food and baskets of wood for the fires. You're given time to wash and change into finer clothes. At the stroke of the 10th bell, a page comes to fetch you. You follow him through familiar corridors until you're once again standing before the plain oak door. Alaric is waiting there, leaning casually against the wall. He wears no crown tonight, only a dark robe belted with silver cord. His amber eyes catch the torchlight as he regards you. You've earned this, he says simply, and produces a key from his sleeve. It's wrought in iron, heavy with the bow shaped like a coiled serpent. He presses it into your hand. Remember, once you open it, you cannot unsee what's inside. The lock turns with a solid click. The door swings inward without a sound. The room beyond is dimly lit, the only light coming from tall candles in wrought iron holders. It's larger than you expected, but empty at the center, as if waiting for something. The walls are hung with heavy drapes in deep blue, and the air is warm-scented faintly of myrrh. As you step inside, the door closes behind you with a soft thud. You turn and realize Alaric has not followed. Instead, a figure emerges from behind one of the drapes. They are masked, half silver, half black, and robed in dark velvet. Their voice when they speak is low, but carries perfectly in the stillness. You hold the key, they say. That means you've been chosen to witness. Another figure steps out from the shadows, then another. Soon, there are 6 of them forming a loose circle around you. Each mask is different animal-human abstract, but all gleam in the candlelight. In the center of the circle, a chair is brought forward. Not a throne, but something older, more ritualistic, carved with symbols you don't recognize. You will sit, the first masked figure says, and you will see what the court hides from all but the initiated. You hesitate, but the weight of the moment draws you forward. The chair is cold beneath you. The 6 masked figures begin to move, pacing slowly around you in perfect unison. They begin to speak not in words you understand, but in a rhythmic chant, low and steady. The sound builds, wrapping around you like a tightening cord. The candle flames seem to lean inward, drawn to the center. From somewhere behind the drapes, a 7th figure emerges. Taller than the rest, their mask is entirely gold, featureless, except for 2 narrow slits for eyes. They carry something wrapped in cloth. They approach you, stop just before the chair, and unwrap their burden. Inside is a mask, intricate, strange, unlike any you've seen. It's shaped like a bird's skull, the bone gleaming white, the beak long and sharp. This, the gold-masked figure says, is your mark. Once you wear it, you are part of the game forever. They hold it out. The bird skull mask is heavier than you expect. The bone gleams as though it's been polished for years, its surface cool against your palms. You can feel the subtle ridges where real bone would meet cartilage, every detail rendered with unnerving precision. The eye sockets are deep shadowed so that from the outside whoever wears it becomes unreadable. The gold-masked figure holds your gaze, if it can be called that, through those narrow slits. Once you wear it, they repeat, there is no going back. The 6 masked courtiers around you stop their pacing. Their stillness presses in on you. It feels as though the room itself is waiting. You lift the mask. For a moment you hesitate, the beak hovering in the air like a bird poised to strike. Then you lower it over your face. The world shifts instantly. The air smells sharper, colder. Your vision narrows and lengthens through the beak's frame, and the voices in the room seem to deepen, resonating strangely inside the enclosed space of the mask. The candlelight flares brighter, each flame a long, trembling spear of gold. The chant resumes, soft at first, then swelling into a steady, pulsing rhythm. The gold-masked figure steps back into the circle. One by one, the others join the chant, their masked faces turning toward you as they move in unison. The sound vibrates in your chest, a strange mixture of welcome and warning. Then they stop. The silence is thick enough to feel. You are marked, the gold-masked figure says. Now you may see. The drapes on the far wall part. A passageway opens into darkness lit only by a faint red glow somewhere deep within. The gold-masked figure gestures for you to rise. The beak of the mask makes you move differently, more deliberate, more aware of space. You step into the passage, the 6 masked figures falling in behind you. The air grows warmer with each step, the red glow deepening. The passage opens into a chamber unlike anything in the castle above. The walls are carved from dark stone covered in reliefs that twist and coil into shapes you can't quite identify, half human, half something else. At the center stands a long, low table draped in black cloth. Upon it, arranged with ceremonial precision, are objects: a dagger with a jeweled hilt, a crown of twisted bronze, a chalice carved from onyx, a coil of silk rope, and a small sealed box. The gold-masked figure moves to the table. These, they say, are the emblems of the inner court. Every new mask-bearer chooses one. It will bind you to a role. They gesture for you to approach. Your gloved hand hovers over each object in turn. The dagger glints dangerously. The crown seems heavier than its size should allow. The chalice's rim is worn smooth as if by many mouths. The silk rope catches the light like liquid. The box is unmarked, its contents unknown. You make your choice. The gold-masked figure nods once sharply and lifts the chosen emblem from the table. They place it in your hands with ceremonial gravity. The 6 masked figures bow their heads in unison. From this night forward, the gold-masked figure intones, "You bear the mask and the emblem. You are bound by the court's law. You will serve its games, its hunts, and its rites until the king himself releases you, or until the mask is taken from you." The words hang in the air, final and irreversible. Then they guide you back through the passage into the candle-lit room where the ceremony began. The gold-masked figure steps aside, and for the first time since the mask touched your face, you see Alaric. He stands near the doorway, unmasked, his amber eyes catching the light. So he says softly, "You've taken the step. I wondered if you would." His gaze drifts to the emblem in your hand. A slow smile curves his lips. "Interesting choice. That will make the nights ahead complicated." The masked courtiers file past you, disappearing through another doorway. Only you and Alaric remain. He walks closer, studying the bird skull mask on your face. You've noticed, he says, how it changes the way you see. It also changes the way others see you. In the court, you are no longer simply a guest. You are a player. He circles you once the way a hawk might circle its prey, though you can't tell if you're meant to feel hunted or protected. Tomorrow, he says, you'll take part in your first rite. It will be public. The pause before that last word carries weight, and the court will judge you by it. Fail, and the mask will be stripped away. You remove the mask slowly. The air against your face feels startlingly fresh. Alaric takes it from you, holding it for a moment, as though considering something, then returns it to your hands. Keep it close. You'll need it. He leaves you, then slipping into the shadows of the corridor. You're alone in the candlelight, the mask heavy in your grasp. The chamber is silent again, but the echo of the chant lingers in your bones. You know that whatever tomorrow's rite is, it will be the next turn of the wheel you stepped onto the moment you rolled dagger and key. Back in your chamber, the fire burns low. You set the mask on the table beside your bed. It sits there in the dim glow, its hollow eyes fixed on you. You can't help the feeling that it's watching. You lie down, but sleep does not come easily. Every time your eyes close, you see the gold-masked figure placing the emblem in your hands. Hear the finality of their voice until the mask is taken from you. Somewhere in the castle, a clock strikes the late hour. You wonder how many others are lying awake tonight, masks beside their beds waiting for the next summons. The summons comes before the sun has fully cleared the horizon. You're still dressing when a knock echoes through your chamber, 4 quick raps, precise and practiced. A page waits at the door, his head lowered, avoiding your eyes. In his hands is a folded length of black cloth. For the right, he says simply, before placing it on the table and withdrawing without another word. You unfold it. The fabric is heavy, the weave fine, and as you lift it, you realize it's a robe, long hooded, and clearly meant to be worn over the mask. Its inside smells faintly of smoke, and something older, something that reminds you of the fountain room incense and secrets. You dress slowly, the robe settling over your shoulders like a weight. The mask goes on last, the bird skull beak narrowing your vision, framing the room in its hollow gaze. The page returns to guide you. The castle's corridors feel different this morning, emptier as though the stone itself is holding its breath. You're led down to a courtyard you've never seen before, enclosed by high walls draped in ivy. In its center stands a raised wooden platform wide enough for 10 people to stand side by side. The court is already gathering. Some wear masks, others do not, but every face is turned toward the platform. The air hums with quiet anticipation. At the far end of the courtyard, Alaric waits, flanked by 2 of his masked courtiers. His robe is a deep crimson today, trimmed in gold, the color rich against the winter light. When he sees you, he beckons. You cross the frost-dusted stones, feeling every step like a step toward something irreversible. Today, Alaric says softly, leaning just close enough for you to hear you stand before the court as one of its own. But the mask alone is not enough. You must prove yourself worthy of wearing it. You're about to ask how, when a horn sounds a deep mournful note that rolls across the courtyard and makes the hairs on your arms rise. The 2 masked courtiers bring forward a prisoner. They're hooded, bound at the wrists, their clothes torn and muddied. From their size and bearing, they could be anyone, a noble fallen from grace, a common thief, a rival's spy. Alaric speaks so only you can hear. This one defied me, and now the court will see if you understand what it means to be one of us. The prisoner is pushed to their knees at the center of the platform. The hood is pulled away, revealing a face marked by defiance and fear in equal measure. They meet your masked gaze without flinching. This is your right, Alaric says. 3 choices lie before you: exile, service, or death. Speak it, and it will be done. The crowd has gone utterly silent. You can feel their attention like heat against your skin. Somewhere in that sea of faces, the gold-masked figure is watching. You can feel it without seeing them. The weight of the decision settles into you. Exile means turning them loose into the cold world beyond the walls where survival is a gamble. Service means binding them to the court, making them part of this same web you've only just entered. Death. Death would make a statement that you are not to be taken lightly. You speak your choice. Your voice sounds strange coming from inside the mask, echoing in your own ears, as though someone else had spoken it. There's a beat of stillness. Then Alaric's lips curve into the faintest of smiles. "So be it," he says aloud, and gestures to his attendants. They move without hesitation, carrying out your will. The court reacts in subtle ways, a ripple through the gathered crowd. A few murmurs, a nod, here a glance there. It's not applause, not outright approval, but you sense that your choice has been noted, recorded in the unspoken ledger that governs your place among them. Alaric turns to face the assembly. You have seen, he says, his voice carrying easily. Our newest mask-bearer understands the weight of judgment. They will stand among us as player, not pawn. There's a low murmur of assent, and then the horn sounds again, brighter this time, less mournful. The crowd begins to disperse, breaking into smaller knots of conversation. Some masked figures approach you, offering brief words, compliments wrapped in careful neutrality questions that are more tests than genuine curiosity. Through it all, Alaric stays close, his presence both protective and watchful. When the last of the courtiers have left, he leans toward you again. You've done well, he says, but the right is only the first step. There is more to learn. He leads you from the courtyard through a side passage that opens into a room you recognize, the long hall of masks. The afternoon light filters through narrow windows, casting patterns across the glass cases. Alaric stops before an empty case. This, he says, is yours. When your time here is done, your mask will rest within it. How long that will be depends on how you play the game. You look at the space bare, waiting. It feels oddly final, as though a part of you is already claimed by it. Tonight, Alaric continues, the court will feast, and you will sit at my side. Some will see this as favor. Others will see it as a challenge. Both are correct. He leaves you there for a moment, standing before the empty case, the mask's beak casting your reflection in strange, broken angles. Later, as the sun dips low, you're summoned to the great hall. The tables are laid with more food than seems reasonable, platters of roasted game, wheels of cheese, baskets of sugared fruits. The air is thick with the scents of spiced wine and wood smoke. Minstrels play in the gallery above their music, weaving through the low roar of conversation. You take your seat beside Alaric, feeling the eyes of the court on you. He raises his goblet in a silent toast, then drinks deeply. Around you, the games of conversation begin, alliances hinted at, rivalries sharpened under the gloss of civility. One masked courtier leans across the table toward you. You chose boldly this morning. They say their tone carefully unreadable. I wonder if you'll be as decisive when the game turns on you. You meet their gaze through the hollow sockets of the bird skull mask. I'll be ready, you say. They smile faintly, as if that's exactly the answer they expected. Alaric speaks to you quietly, between courses, pointing out faces, naming allegiances, hinting at undercurrents running just beneath the surface of the feast. Some of his comments are casual. Others are weighted like seeds dropped into soil to see if they take root. As the night wears on, the hall grows warmer, the air thicker with wine and unspoken challenges. You begin to sense the rhythm of the court's gatherings, the subtle tests, the glances exchanged like coded messages, the way even a simple toast can be a weapon. By the time the feast ends, you understand one thing clearly: wearing the mask is only the beginning. The real game is played in moments like these, in words that mean more than they say, in choices that seem small but ripple outward. And you have just stepped into the current. The feast dwindles, but the court's energy doesn't fade, it shifts. The music softens, the minstrels playing slower, darker notes. Courtiers begin to slip away from the tables in small knots, disappearing through side doors or drifting into shadowed alcoves. Alaric's conversation with a noblewoman in a fox mask is languid but deliberate. You sense he's giving you space on purpose, letting the court have a turn with you. A masked figure, silver filigree curling like frost across the face, touches your shoulder. This way, they murmur, voice smooth, practiced. They don't wait for your answer before walking toward one of the seen doors. You follow. The corridor beyond is narrow, candlelit, the air cooler. Your guide moves quickly, the hem of their robe whispering against the flagstones. After several turns, you emerge into a smaller chamber you haven't seen before. It's warm here, the light honey gold from dozens of beeswax candles. Cushions are scattered across the floor, and a low table holds a collection of goblets and bottles, each stoppered with wax. Several courtiers are already here, their masks more elaborate than at the feast. Jewels glitter in torchlight, enamel painted in impossible patterns. Their voices hush as you enter attention, settling on you like a slow falling net. This says the silver filigree guide is the after-gathering. They gesture for you to sit. Someone presses a goblet into your hand before you've even found your place among the cushions. The wine is richer than the feast's, darker, with a strange herbal undertone. Here, says a voice to your left, the game changes again. The speaker's mask is carved like a cat's face, gold leaf whiskers catching the light. At the feast, you're on display. Here you're tested. They lean closer, lowering their voice to a purr. We find your weaknesses. The words are more promise than threat, but your pulse quickens all the same. The first test comes quickly. The silver filigree courtier explains the rules, a story circle. Each player adds a sentence to a tale, but each sentence must hide a truth about themselves, one that another player may try to expose. If your truth is guessed, you must answer a question without refusing. The story begins innocuously enough, a hunter in the forest, a lost road, a storm. When your turn comes, you feel the eyes behind the masks leaning in. You add your line careful, distant, but with a glimmer of something real buried in it. It doesn't fool everyone. A courtier in a sunburst pattern mask tilts their head. That's not just a storm, they say. That's something you've run from before. The room stills expectant. You nod once, yes. They smile faintly, but say no more. The story rolls on other secrets, plucked free and placed on the table like coins. The second test is more direct. The cat mask courtier slides a small wooden box toward you. You open it to find 3 objects, a silver ring, a folded scrap of parchment, and a vial of dark liquid. You may take one, they say, but each has a price. The ring, they tell you, grants a favor from any one member of the court once. The parchment holds a name. Speak it to Alaric, and that person will never trouble you again. The vial's effect is left unsaid, but the way the room shifts when it's mentioned makes your skin prickle. You choose. The box is closed, your choice noted by every masked face. The third test is not announced. It simply happens. A courtier beside you begins to speak of loyalty, what it means, how it's proved. Their tone is casual, almost lazy, but their eyes are sharp. They weave the talk toward a name you don't recognize, then ask, would you stand against them for Alaric's sake? It's a trap, of course. You don't even know who they mean. But the court is listening, and hesitation would mark you. You answer without pause, letting conviction fill your voice. The room breathes again, conversation resuming, as though nothing had happened. But you feel it, each of these moments is a notch in the measure of your worth. Wine flows freely. Stories darken. Laughter grows sharper. At some point, a masked courtier produces a small drum, its beat slow and hypnotic. The circle shifts, cushions are pushed back, and the players lean in toward the center of the room. The silver filigree courtier who brought you here speaks again. Now we see how you face the mask. From a carved chest, they lift another mask, not yours, but one made of black lacquer, featureless, except for a smooth oval where the face should be. They hold it out to you. You wear this, they say, and answer the questions you cannot see coming. You take it, slipping it over your bird skull mask. The world goes dark. You can hear but not see. Your own breath fills the space between your ears. The questions come in voices all around you, male, female, impossible to place. Some are sharp as blades. What would you take from Alaric if you could? Others are deceptively soft. What would make you walk away from this court forever? You answer as best you can, relying on instinct. Sometimes the room hums approval. Sometimes the silence afterward is thick with doubt. At last, the mask is lifted away. The candlelight is blinding for a moment. The silver filigree courtier studies you for a long beat, then nods once. You didn't break, they say. Not tonight. The circle dissolves slowly, courtiers drifting away in twos and threes. Some give you the briefest nod of acknowledgement. Others don't look at you at all, which might mean more than it seems. When you finally rise, your guide is gone. You make your way back through the winding corridors, alone, the sound of the drum still beating in your head. At the junction before your chamber, you find Alaric waiting. He leans against the wall as though he's been there for some time. So he says lightly, "They took you to the after gathering." You nod. His smile deepens, though it never quite reaches his eyes. And you returned with your mask intact. That is, better than most. He pushes away from the wall, walking past you toward the stairs. Over his shoulder, he says, "Sleep. Tomorrow the court moves in daylight, and that is when the true games begin." You're left standing there, the weight of the night's trials pressing against your ribs. Somewhere far above, a bell tolls the hour. You wonder if the daylight will really be any safer. Dawn slips into the castle like a careful intruder, sliding between the shutters, laying pale light across the stone floors. You wake to the sound of movement outside your chamber, footsteps, the clink of armor, the low murmur of voices. Daylight feels different here. The shadows aren't gone, just sharper, as if the court's games have changed costumes, but not their nature. You dress without a summons. The robe and mask remain on the table, but you take the mask with you, tucking it under your arm. A strange sense has taken root overnight. You're no longer moving through the castle as a guest. You're part of it now, a piece in its living chessboard. In the great hall, the long tables are stripped bare except for jugs of watered wine and bowls of bread. Courtiers linger in clusters, their morning voices subdued. Some wear masks even now. Others are bare-faced, but carry themselves with the same guarded precision as at the feast. Alaric is already there, seated at the high table, a sheet of parchment before him. His amber eyes flick toward you as you enter. He sets the parchment aside. "Good," he says, as though you've passed some invisible test merely by appearing early. "Today you'll learn how the court hunts in daylight." He rises and gestures for you to follow. The courtier's conversation dips as you pass. You feel the weight of their curiosity pressing at your back. Through a side door, you step into a smaller chamber lined with windows that overlook the inner courtyard. A long table dominates the room, covered with objects, sealed letters, small purses of coins, scraps of parchment with hasty sketches, a scattering of keys. This, Alaric says, sweeping a hand across the table, is the market of influence. Every coin here is a favor. Every letter a secret. Every key an open door, sometimes literally, sometimes not. Each player chooses what they will hold trade or spend before sunset. He picks up a sealed letter and places it in your hand. This is yours. Its worth will be tested before the day is out. You study the heavy wax seal, its stamp unfamiliar. The urge to break it is immediate, but Alaric's faint smile tells you that would be premature. The other courtiers begin to arrive, slipping into the room with quiet purpose. They move to the table like gamblers to a game, eyes sharp, fingers quick. One lifts a key, another pockets a coin pouch, a third takes 2 letters at once. The air hums with the energy of silent negotiation. A courtier in a narrow, flame-shaped mask glances at your letter as they pass. Careful, they murmur. That one burns. It's not a warning you can fully parse, but you tuck it away. When the table is cleared, Alaric leads the way into the courtyard. Winter light gleams on the frost-rimmed stones. Groups form quickly, pairs and trios, whispering, drifting toward shaded corners. Some leave the courtyard entirely, disappearing into the castle's warren of halls. Alaric stays at your side. The rules are simple, he says. Trade what you have for something more valuable. Protect it from those who'd steal it. And above all, make sure it matters when the day ends. He leaves you then, walking toward a group of senior courtiers, his crimson cloak trailing. You're not alone for long. A tall figure in a mask of overlapping bronze scales approaches. I know what's in your letter, they say. Their voice is low, conspiratorial. I'll trade you the name of its sender for your protection in the next game. It's a tempting offer, but even as you weigh it, another courtier sidles up, a woman in a half-mask, painted like a hawk's face. Don't trust the bronze scales, she says without preamble. They'll give you a false name to trap you. I'll offer you something real, a key that opens the solar tower for the letter itself. The letter grows heavier in your hand. 2 offers, 2 possible traps. You decide to move, keeping both at bay for now. As the day stretches on, the market becomes a web. Courtiers trade openly in the halls, but others play a subtler game, slipping notes under goblets, passing coins with a handshake, whispering in the shadow of a doorway. You catch glimpses of your own letter in their conversations, always with a glint of hunger in the eyes. By mid-afternoon, the tension sharpens. In a small gallery off the main hall, you're cornered by the flame mask courtier. It's time, they say. If you don't use that letter now, it will be worthless by nightfall. How, you ask? Show it to Alaric, they reply. If he values it, he'll keep it. If not, he'll know you wasted your piece. It feels like a trap in its own right, but something in their tone says you'll be judged either way. You find Alaric in the solar light pouring around him as he studies a map. Without a word, you offer him the sealed letter. He breaks the wax, reads quickly, and then folds it again. His eyes meet yours. There's no smile this time, no easy charm, just a measured, assessing look. You've brought me something worth keeping, he says finally. And you've kept it safe through the day. That is what matters. He tucks the letter into his cloak. But remember, what's worth keeping one day may be worth nothing the next. Play every day as though it's your last chance to move the board. You leave the Sola with the faint impression that you've passed, though the criteria remain maddeningly opaque. The day ends as the winter sun bleeds out behind the walls. In the great hall, a smaller gathering replaces the feast wine bread, a scattering of fruits and cheeses. The courtiers talk more openly now, their energy less guarded, but no less pointed. You take a seat near the fire. The hawk mask courtier from earlier drifts by, pausing just long enough to say, "You've kept your place another day. Don't mistake that for safety." Before you can reply, they've moved on. Alaric appears beside you, a goblet in hand. Tomorrow, he says, the game shifts again. You've learned to guard what you're given. Now you'll learn to take what isn't. The firelight flickers across his face, catching in his amber eyes. He raises his goblet in a quiet toast. To daylight's end and night's beginning. You drink. The castle's night breath is different from its day. The corridors seem longer. The torches burn lower, and every distant footstep echoes like a private warning. You're still thinking about Alaric's words, "Take what isn't yours," when the summons arrives. It comes not by messenger this time, but by sound, 3 slow chimes of a bell you've never heard before. You leave your chamber instinctively, mask in hand, and find the halls empty, except for the flicker of wall torches. Somewhere deep inside, you know you're not meant to be guided tonight. This game will start with you finding it. You move through the warren of corridors, the castle's bones shifting around you like a labyrinth that only opens for those who dare to press forward. Eventually, you reach a narrow staircase spiraling down toward a faint orange glow. At the bottom, the passage spills into a vaulted chamber lined with arches. A handful of masked courtiers are already there, standing in a loose circle. In their center is a low table bearing a collection of objects, coins, small keys, a rolled parchment tied with black ribbon, a dagger with a narrow gleaming blade. Alaric steps out from the shadows. Tonight, his mask is different bronze, shaped like the face of a wolf. "Welcome to the hunt," he says. His voice carries just enough to fill the chamber. "Tonight, you will take something. Not what you're given, not what you're owed. Something that belongs to another player." He gestures to the table. "One of these is yours to claim, but you must be the last to hold it when the hunt ends." A masked courtier to your left leans slightly toward you. And if you lose it, they murmur, you lose more than the game. The Wolf Mask King continues. "You may take openly by challenge. You may take in secret by cunning. But whatever you take, guard it. At dawn, the one who holds their prize still in hand wins favor in my court. The others do not." He turns to you. Choose your target. Your eyes scan the table. The coins could buy small favors. The keys could open doors, both literal and political. The parchment could hold a name or a promise. The dagger could protect or condemn you. You reach for one. Its weight in your palm feels significant, even if you don't yet know why. The game begins. The chamber erupts into motion. Courtiers vanish into the side passages, cloaks whispering in the dark. Some go alone. Others pair off, murmuring alliances they'll likely break before the night is over. You follow a narrow hall into a dim gallery. The air here smells faintly of dust and oil, the torches fewer and farther between. A figure in a half-mask steps from the shadows ahead, blocking your path. "That's mine," they say, eyes flicking to the object in your hand. Their tone is almost polite, but the tension in their stance says this will not end with words. You keep your voice steady. "Not tonight." They step closer, their gloved hand twitching toward the dagger at their belt. You're not armed, not really, but you've learned enough to know the court values. Nerve as much as steel. You hold their gaze through the hollow sockets of your mask and say nothing. After a long moment, they smile faintly. "Not tonight," they echo and step aside. But you know they'll be coming for you again. The hunt winds through the castle like a fever dream. At times you find yourself alone in silent corridors, the stone cold beneath your boots. At others, you cross paths with two courtiers struggling over a key, their masks tilted askew. You hear snippets of whispers, the clink of coins changing hands, the rustle of parchment being passed in secret. Once you glimpse Alaric watching from an upper balcony, arms folded wolf mask, gleaming in torchlight. He doesn't move to join the game, but his gaze follows you until you pass out of sight. Midway through the night, you stumble into the fountain room. The red glow from the zozaics seems deeper here. The water's soft trickle loud in the otherwise still chamber. You crouch near the fountain to drink, keeping one eye on the doorway. A voice drifts from behind you. They'll come for it soon. You turn to see the gold-masked figure from your initiation. They stand in the archway, motionless. The trick, they say, is to make them believe they've already taken it, before you can ask how they vanish into the dark. The hunt wears on. You begin to understand its rhythms, the brief confrontations, the longer stretches of quiet paranoia. Every time you think you've found safety, you hear a footstep behind you, see a flicker of movement at the edge of the torchlight. In a shadowed stairwell, a masked courtier lunges for your hand. You twist away, nearly losing your grip. The object slips in your grasp, but stays with you. You push past them, heart-pounding, and take the stairs two at a time. By the time the first gray of dawn begins to seep through the narrow windows, you're back in the vaulted chamber where it began. One by one, the players return their masks dull with fatigue, their movements slower. Some carry nothing at all. Others clutch their prizes like lifelines. Alaric steps forward, surveying the circle. His gaze settles on you. Well, he asks. You open your hand, revealing the object you claimed hours ago. It's still yours. The wolf mask tilts in something like approval. You've held it. That is what matters. He turns to the others, and so ends the hunt. The players disperse without ceremony. Some maskless faces are tight with frustration. Others are impassive, already planning the next game. As you leave, Alaric falls into step beside you. You've learned to guard, he says. You've learned to take. Soon you'll learn to trade. That's where the court becomes truly dangerous. His voice lowers just enough for only you to hear. And that's when you'll find out if you belong here at all. The day after the hunt begins strangely quiet. The castle's corridors are hushed, and the courtiers you pass speak in voices meant not to carry. You wonder if it's fatigue from the night's chase or the stillness before something sharper. The summons comes in the late morning, not a bell, not a knock, but a folded slip of parchment slid under your door. There's no seal, only a single word in precise black ink, mark it. You take your mask and follow the winding halls toward the solar tower, where light falls in long columns across the flagstones. The room at the top has been transformed. Low tables are scattered about, each covered in objects, coins, letters, miniature portraits, gilded trinkets, keys of every shape. But among these are stranger offerings, a lock of hair tied in black ribbon, a dagger still darkened at the edge, a scrap of fabric embroidered with a crest you don't recognize. The courtiers are already here, masked and unmasked alike, moving in a slow, deliberate current from table to table. Their voices are low but edged with calculation. Alaric stands at the far end, leaning against the high windowsill. Today he wears no crown, but the wolfish gleam in his amber eyes is unmistakable. This, he says as you approach, is the trade. In the hunt, you kept what you could hold. Here you will part with what you value willingly or not. What you gain will depend on what you risk. You glance at the tables again, And what am I to risk? His smile deepens. Something that belongs to you. Not the court, not the game. You. The words hit harder than you expect. This isn't about a coin or a key, it's about you placing a piece of yourself into the current, knowing it might not return. Choose carefully, Alaric says. The court will measure your worth not by what you take today, but by what you're willing to give. You think of the mask of the emblem given to you in the bird skull rite of the sealed letter from the daylight game. All are yours now, and all could be bait for a greater prize. But Alaric's tone tells you this risk must be personal. You reach into your cloak and produce it, an item small enough to fit in your palm, yet heavy with meaning. It's set on the nearest table, and already a few courtiers glance toward it, their interest thinly veiled. The trade begins. There are no shouted bids here, no open bargaining. Each exchange is a quiet collision in the current, a glance, a murmur, a subtle movement of hands. You watch as a key trades for a letter, a lock of hair for a small ruby brooch, a dagger for something you can't see concealed in a folded scrap of silk. Your item draws attention quickly. A courtier in a deep green mask pauses before it fingers brushing the edge. They offer you a small brass key in exchange its bow, carved into the shape of a coiled serpent. You decline, not yet. Moments later, the bronze scale mask from the hunt approaches. They hold a letter sealed in red wax. For this, they say, simply nodding toward your item. The seal bears a crest you've glimpsed before in Alaric's private solar. The temptation to take it is immediate, but you can't tell if it's a trap or a gift. You decline again. The market swirls on. Twice, courtiers attempt to distract you, while another reaches for your offering, once with a too friendly question, once with a brush of the shoulder meant to draw you a sit-up. Both times you keep your focus, your palm hovering protectively over what's yours. Then the gold-masked figure appears. Their voice is low enough that no one else can hear. I'll give you something you can't display on a table, they say. A name you will need before the month ends. You search their mask's empty gaze for any sign of deceit. There's nothing. Just the gold, the voice, the offer. What name, you ask? They shake their head. Trade first. You hesitate, feeling the weight of the moment. Then you place your offering in their hand. They close their fingers over it, and without breaking eye contact, they whisper a name. It settles in your mind like a seed dropped into dark soil. You don't know yet what it will grow into, but instinct tells you it will matter. The gold mask moves away without another word. Your item is gone, your gain invisible to the rest of the court. Alaric's voice cuts through the murmur. The trade is ended. The courtiers drift toward the exit, their movements slower now, as though each is taking stock of their victories and losses. Alaric crosses to you. Well, he asks, though you suspect he already knows. I traded, you say, for a name. He studies you for a long moment, then nods once. You've begun to understand. In my court, the most dangerous currency is the one you cannot see. He leans in, his voice dropping. Protect it. Use it when the time comes, and when you do, make sure it cuts. You leave the solar with the name echoing in your head, the corridors seeming narrower somehow. The market's noise has faded, but you can still feel the game pressing in closer now, more personal. That night alone in your chamber, you speak the name aloud, just once, tasting it. It feels like a key in your mouth. You slip your mask over your face and stare at your reflection in the darkened glass. Somewhere deep in the castle, a bell rings the late hour. You know that when the next summons comes, it will be for something sharper, something that will force you to use the weapons you've gathered visible and hidden alike. The summons comes quicker than you expect. You've barely finished your morning bread when a page arrives, breathless, his tunic askew from haste. He bows low, thrusting a sealed note into your hand. The wax is black, stamped with the serpent coil design you've seen before on keys passed in the market. You break it open. Inside, in that same precise black ink, you will speak the name before the high table tonight. No signature, but you don't need one. Alaric has called you to use the weapon you traded for. The hours until nightfall are slow, heavy with a tautness that never loosens. You rehearse the name silently, careful not to speak it aloud. It feels alive in your mind, coiled like a waiting thing. You wonder if the gold-masked figure knew exactly what they were giving you, or if they only suspected what would unfold when you dared to say it. By the time the feast begins, the great hall is a theater of anticipation. The tables groan under platters of roasted meat and sugared fruit, but few seem truly focused on the food. The court's conversations are quick and clipped, their glances sharper than usual. Somewhere in the room, the name you carry is also present, breathing, watching, waiting for its own unveiling. You take your seat beside Alaric. He's in black tonight, the fabric so deep it swallows the firelight, a single silver clasp at his shoulder. The wolfish curve of his mouth says he's enjoying your tension. Halfway through the feast, he rises. Tonight, he says, we see whether our newest player has teeth. His gaze slides to you. Speak. The hall falls into silence. Every eye turns toward you. You stand slowly, the bird skull mask narrowing your vision so that all you see are the flickers of torchlight and the amber gleam of the king's eyes. You take a breath, steady your voice, and speak the name. It lands in the hall like a thrown blade. For a moment, nothing moves. Then you hear the subtle intake of breath from one side of the room. A masked figure stiffens, their gloved hand curling into a fist on the table. A few heads turn toward them, whispers beginning like the hiss of dry grass catching fire. Alaric's smile widens, not with warmth, but with a predator's satisfaction. Interesting, he says, and gestures for you to sit. The feast resumes, but its rhythm has shifted. Glances are no longer casual. They are sharp and deliberate. Conversations break off when you approach, and the masked figure whose name you spoke pointedly avoids your gaze. You've marked them now, and in doing so, you've also marked yourself. Later, in the smaller chamber behind the dais, Alaric pours wine into 2 goblets. You struck well, he says, handing you one. Do you know what you've done? You shake your head. You've accused without accusing. That name you spoke belongs to one who owes me a debt they've pretended doesn't exist. Now they will come to collect you or destroy you to keep their secret whole. He takes a slow drink. You've just moved yourself from player to threat. Congratulations. The weight of his words sinks in. You've played a dangerous card without seeing the full board, but there's no taking it back now. Alaric seems to read your thoughts. Fear is a tool, he says. Make them fear you more than they hate you, and you'll survive. Do nothing, and you'll be eaten. The rest of the night passes under a watchful hush. Courtiers glance toward you, as if reassessing your worth or your danger. You notice the gold-masked figure in the gallery above watching you through the narrow eye slits. A nod from them is the only acknowledgement they give, but it feels like a seal pressed to wax. In your chamber later, you remove the mask and set it on the table. The name still hums in your mind, no longer coiled, but unspooling slowly, stretching its shadow over the coming days. The first sign of the blowback comes the next morning. A folded note waits at your door. No wax seal this time, just a single phrase we will speak away from the king. It's unsigned, but the handwriting is different from Alaric's. You have no doubt it's from the one you named. The meeting place is not in the castle proper, but in the covered bridge that connects the east tower to the old hunting lodge. You arrive at dusk, the winter light already fading. The figure is there, unmasked, leaning against the stone balustrade. Their face is pale eyes, sharp with both anger and calculation. You think you're clever, they say. You say nothing. That name you spoke, it wasn't just a name. It was a door you've slammed open without knowing what's behind it. You've forced me into a corner, and cornered things bite. Their hand drifts toward their cloak pocket but stops short. You've made an enemy, they continue, but you've also made an ally, whether you realize it or not. The king will watch how I deal with you. If I'm too soft, I'm weak. If I'm too hard, I'm predictable. So here's what we'll do. You'll carry a message for me. They slip a sealed note into your hand. Deliver this to the gold-masked one. No questions. Do it, and I won't make you regret your move. Fail, and the court will eat what's left of you. They leave without another word, their footsteps fading into the cold air. You hold the note for a long moment, feeling its weight. Another piece in the game. Another choice with no safe path. The sealed note is warm from your palm by the time you reach your chamber. You set it on the table and stare at it as though it might speak. It doesn't. Its black wax seal, plain unmarked, gives nothing away. The air in the room feels heavier, as if the walls themselves are waiting for your choice. You could deliver it to the gold-masked figure as requested. You could open it first and see what kind of trouble you're about to carry. Or you could take it directly to Alaric and place the entire burden in his hands. Each path is a blade pointed in a different direction. You reach for the note, turning it over in your fingers. The seal is thin. A careful hand could break it and reseal it without leaving much trace. You hesitate only a moment before sliding the tip of your dagger beneath the wax. The seal pops with a soft crack, and the folded parchment opens in your hands. The message is short, frustratingly so. A single line. The mask is yours when the falcon flies. No signature, no context. You read it twice more, searching for meaning. The falcon could mean the court's messenger bird. It could mean the falconer's pavilion in the lower ward. It could be a metaphor entirely. The mask, your mask, a different one. You reseal it carefully, pressing the wax flat, and tuck it into your cloak. The search for the gold-masked figure takes most of the afternoon. You find them not in the fountain room or the masked hall, but in the gallery above the chapel, standing where sunlight falls in sharp bars through narrow windows. You approach, and their head turns just slightly toward you. You've brought something, they say, their voice quiet enough to be absorbed by the stone. You hand them the note. They study the seal for a moment, before taking it, without opening it. You read it, they murmur not a question, but a statement. You wait. A faint chuckle escapes them. Good. A courier who delivers blindly is useless to me. They slip the note away. And now you've done something more dangerous than carrying a message. You've told me you're willing to look inside. The air between you is taut with unspoken currents. they step closer. That name you spoke at the feast, it will haunt you, but it will also protect you. If you're wise, you'll keep adding names to that list until it's longer than anyone can erase. Before you can answer, their gaze slides past your shoulder. You follow it and see Alaric in the doorway, his silhouette unmistakable in the fractured light. The gold-masked figure inclines their head toward you in parting, then slips away through the side stairs. Alaric crosses the gallery at an unhurried pace, his amber eyes locked on yours. "You've been busy," he says. "I was delivering something." He stops close enough that you catch the faint scent of cloves in his breath. "And did you see fit to open it first? There's no use lying." "Yes." The smallest tilt of his mouth, not quite a smile. "Good." The word lands strangely, like approval wrapped in a warning. "I want players, not pawns," he says. "But understand this, if you look too closely at every game piece, someone will take the board away from you entirely." He gestures toward the chapel below. "Come. Tonight we dine small, but tomorrow. Tomorrow the court moves against itself. And I expect you to choose a side." That night, the feast is indeed smaller, just the high table and a handful of favored courtiers. Conversation drifts toward falcons and the hunt. But the undercurrent is sharper, everyone speaking as though expecting the topic to veer toward something more dangerous. You keep glancing at the gold-masked figure seated far down the table and wonder if the falcon flies is tomorrow's signal. After the meal, Alaric draws you aside. "The court will divide," he says simply. "Two factions, one game. Each will seek to control a prize neither can hold alone. Choose wrongly, and you'll be swallowed whole. Choose well." He lets the thought trail off, but the gleam in his eyes promises reward. "Which side should I choose, you ask?" He laughs softly. "If you need me to tell you, you've already lost. You lie awake long after the candles burn low, the day's words chasing each other through your head. The mask is yours when the falcon flies. The court will divide." And under it all, Alaric's quiet admission, "I want players, not pawns." You fall asleep, knowing tomorrow will not be a simple game. It will be the kind that changes your place in the court forever. The morning comes with a cry. Not human falcon. Sharp and cutting through the winter air like a drawn blade. You're on your feet before you've even realized you've moved, crossing your chamber to throw the shutters open. High above the inner courtyard, the king's white falcon wheels once, twice before vanishing behind the east tower. The falcon flies. You dress quickly, mask in hand, and make your way toward the great hall. The corridors are no longer quiet. They hum with a current you can almost see. Courtiers move in purposeful streams, some whispering urgently, others already gathered in tight knots. At each intersection, choices are being made, alliances forged, positions claimed. Inside the hall, the air is sharp with tension. Alaric stands at the high table, but he's not alone. To his right is the gold-masked figure, still and unreadable. To his left, the one whose name you spoke at the feast, their jaw-set eyes bright with challenge. Alaric's voice cuts through the murmur like a bell. Today, he says, the court tests its own. 2 banners, 1 prize. Each faction will try to claim it before sunset. And once it's claimed, the game ends. He turns to you. Choose your banner. The choice is a vice around your ribs. The gold mask, cryptic, dangerous, but the one who gave you the name that brought you this far. The named rival, angry, but perhaps the quicker path to power if you prove loyalty. You feel the eyes of the hall on you. You choose. The faction leaders waste no time. The moment your allegiance is spoken, you're swept into a strategy whispered under the cover of polite conversation. The prize you learn is a key, small, ornate, locked inside the falconer's chest in the lower ward. The other faction will try to intercept you. Failure is public and unforgivable. The game begins. You and your faction slip from the hall into the twisting arteries of the castle. Every turn feels watched, every shadow suspect. Twice you're forced to change your route when masked courtiers block the way with innocent-looking chatter. By the time you reach the lower ward, the other faction is already there. The rival whose name you spoke meets your gaze across the frost-rimmed yard. They smile not warmly, but with a kind of amused recognition. The stalemate is immediate. Neither side wants to move first. It's the gold-masked figure who breaks it. They tilt their head toward you, a barely perceptible signal. You understand speed over subtlety. You lunge forward, cutting across the yard toward the falconer's workshop. Shouts erupt. Boots scrape on stone. Someone grabs your arm, and for a moment you're caught, but the momentum carries you through. You slam the workshop door behind you, breath harsh in your ears. Inside, the air smells of hay and feathers. The chest is there, iron-bound, the falcon crest etched deep into its lid. You drop to one knee, fingers finding the lock. It's complex, but you've seen its kind before. The first tumbler clicks, the second. The third resists, and in that hesitation, the door bursts open. Your rival stands framed in the light mask off, now their expression sharp with triumph. They step forward. You've run out of time. You straighten, meeting their gaze. Then take it. For a moment, the air between you holds two predators gauging the risk. Then slowly, they shake their head. Not yet. I want you to bring it to me. It's a trap, but one you can't afford to spring here. You turn back to the lock. The third tumbler gives. The lid creaks open. Inside, resting on a square of deep red velvet, is the key, smaller than you imagined, but heavy in your palm. You close the chest and slip the key into your cloak. You'll have to catch me, you say. The chase through the lower ward is a blur, boots pounding on stone shouted commands, the flicker of cloaks as the factions spill into the open. By the time you reach the upper courtyard, your heart is hammering, but the key is still yours. The great hall is ahead. You push through its doors, and the noise dies instantly. Alaric stands at the high table, arms folded, eyes fixed on you. You cross the floor, each step echoing. At the foot of the dais, you draw the key from your cloak and place it on the table before him. Silence. Then slowly, Alaric smiles. You've kept it, he says. That is what matters. The rival enters moments later, their expression unreadable. The gold-masked figure lingers at the edge of the room, watching. Alaric's gaze moves between the three of you. The game is done, he declares. The key is claimed. He lifts it, the metal glinting in the torchlight. And with it, a place in my court secured for now. The feast that night is louder, sharper the air, crackling with the afterglow of open play. Some toast you openly. Others avoid your gaze, nursing grudges that will not fade quickly. Later, Alaric draws you aside. You've played well, he says, but the court remembers. Every choice, every name, every stolen thing, it all stacks up until the weight either crowns you or crushes you. His smile is almost kind. Let's see which it will be. You slip away from the great hall, the noise fading behind you, until the corridors are quiet again. The air is cooler now, carrying only the faint scents of wax and winter stone. Somewhere far above, the falcon calls once a soft echo against the tower walls. You return to your chamber, the mask and cloak heavy in your hands. The fire is low, its embers glowing like coals in a deep hearth. You set the mask on the table, its hollow eyes catching the last flicker of light. For a long moment, you simply stand there listening to the silence. It's strange how the castle feels different now. Not safer, not exactly, but less like a place you've been invited into and more like one you've carved out for yourself. The games, the trades, the hunts, they've left marks you can't see, but you can feel them pressed into your bones. You lie down beneath the heavy furs, the sound of the wind curling around the tower. Sleep comes slowly, like a tide creeping in. Images drift through your mind, the flash of the key and torchlight, the curve of Alaric's smile, the gold-masked figure's silent nod. They mingle with softer things, the warmth of the fire, the distant call of the falcon, the safe weight of blankets. The court will play again tomorrow, but for now, in the quiet of your own breath and the stillness of the night, you can let the games fade away. You close your eyes, and the castle's heartbeat slows with yours.